a little after 5 o'clock. Normally it's 6 o'clock Central. And tonight we are going live about an hour early. So, for those of you on the West Coast, sorry about that. Hope you have a good drink in hand and ready to have a little bit of a revolutionary strategy and tactic conversation here in the tavern, which is what we do, just like the Founding Fathers did. And if you don't have a good drink in hand, you need to get you some Patriot Brew. PatriotBrew.com. That is Patriot Academy's coffee. We are very particular about our coffee around here. A bit of coffee snobs, I guess you could say. But we do have three great flavors. We got dark roast, Founders Dark Roast, which I think I shared that one with you last week. I think that was last week. Man, everything happens so fast around here. Constitution Medium Roast. Okay, I have fun with this. I had a lot of fun creating this coffee with our team. And it's a blend as balanced as the Constitution itself. That's what it says at the bottom. Okay, let me have some fun, and then we'll get into our serious topic of arresting pseudo-journalists, actual journalists, and of course, politicians. All right, here we go. Constitution Medium Roast. See if you like this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect coffee experience as balanced and harmonious as our nation's founding principles, do ordain and establish this Constitution Medium Roast. Come on, that's funny. You should be laughing. All right. This carefully crafted blend pays homage to the unwavering spirit of unity and statesmanship infused into the United States Constitution, which guarantees to every state in this union a Republican form of government, not a democracy. Okay, it doesn't say that, but that's my point. Just as our Constitution unites the diverse voices of our country while balancing the purposely unequal branches of government, this Constitution Medium Roast brings together the finest coffee beans from around the world, creating a perfect symphony of flavors. Ben Franklin said, "We were given a republic if you can keep it." And anyone fueled by a cup of Patriot Brew will be ready to do their part in preserving the torch of freedom. All right, so get you some good Patriot Brew coffee and start drinking it. And have some fun with the reading the back. Those of you that missed last week, I'll just do the first line. The right of the people to keep and bear bold flavors of coffee shall not be infringed. Anyway, there's another one, Liberty Light Roast. I don't have it around here, but it's funny too on the back. Have some fun with that. Okay, let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's some just crazy stuff continuing, but also some good stuff. And so let me first just put to rest your concerns that the end of the world as we know it is here, and I feel fine. Yes, for those 80s music, fellow 80s music fans out there. It's not the end of the world. We did lose a Senate race special election on Saturday. This was a fluke, a weird situation. Yes, it's a warning. Look, I get that. I totally agree with the whole, wake up Republicans, da-da-da. That's true. That's absolutely true. But let's not overreact and say, oh, it's going to be a landslide for the Democrats this year, and I might as well give up and go home and hide in my hole. And we are so immature. We either, it's one pendulum swing to the other. Listen, this was a special election in a state Senate race where the current senator stepped down a few months ago because Abbott appointed him to comptroller in order to try to stop a friend of mine, Don Huffines, who's running for comptroller, and I believe is going to win that race. Anyway, bottom line is this senator had to resign to take the appointment, and then this special election was ordered by the governor. And in the special election, the way this works is the special election is so that someone can fill out the rest of that senator's term while also running for a full term to that particular office. So the special election took place last month. There were three people in the race. The person that I have endorsed, that we actually took a bunch of people up and knocked on doors for, is Lee Wamsgans. She's fantastic. She's been a champion on so many things. She's just been phenomenal. We love her. She's helped turn several of the big school boards in the Dallas area. That's really what got her super engaged in the last few years and kind of built up her name. She's been involved for like 30 years, helping candidates, doing all kinds of stuff. Anyway, she's very articulate. She's a phenomenal candidate. So this had nothing to do. This was not one of those scenarios where Republicans put up a bad candidate, and that's why that is not what happened here, okay? She's great, and she's going to win in November. But what happened was, so she ran, and then some other Republican ran. I don't know anything about that person, but they basically siphoned off a bunch of votes in the original race, and then this Democrat got all the Democrat votes. So the Republicans split the Republican vote. Democrat got the Democrat vote. Nobody got 50%. And so, Lee won big over the other Republican, but not big enough to get 51%. So then she had to run in a runoff, which was what happened Saturday against this Democrat. Now, what the crazy thing is, this is a district where I think Trump won it by like 17 points in the general in 2024, with 400,000 people voting in this area where this Senate district is. For those of you outside of Texas, that sounds crazy. Listen, a senator in Texas, a state senator in Texas, has more people than a congressman from Texas that represents us in Washington, D.C. We only have 31 senators in Texas. We have, 38 or 40 congressmen now. And so their districts are even smaller than a state Senate district. So that's why you had 400,000 people voting in that area where this Texas Senate race was. But that was in a presidential election in November. Obviously, those numbers are going to be high. In this special election last month, it was around 100,000, maybe a little over 100,000. I could be a little bit off on my numbers, but around 100,000. So about 20%, 25% of what voted, 2 years ago or really about a year and a half ago, year and 3 months ago, let's be exact, in the presidential election of November 2024, only about 25% showed up. Okay, now in that race last month, there was roughly 56,000 votes for the Democrat, and then about 52,000 for, I think it was 52,000, might have been 42,000 for Lee, and then another 20,000 for that other Republican. Well, in the special last Saturday, the Democrats, their vote from last month only dropped about 2,000, and Lee's vote only dropped by about 2,000, but none of the other 20,000 showed up. So you ended up with 22,000 less votes for Republicans and only 2,000 less votes for Democrats. So clearly the Democrats going to win in that situation. So yeah, Republicans fell asleep. It was confusing to people. When we were knocking on doors for Lee, almost nobody understood. This is a special election. You need to show up, on this. We were trying to get them out for early voting a couple weeks ago. This is not the March 3rd primary. This is not the November. This is right now, going to happen right now. And almost nobody knew that was happening. And so it was a fluke, weird situation. So this guy, this Democrat, yes, he got elected, but he's never going to even get to vote on a single piece of legislation. So he will be the state senator for this year, but there's no legislative session in Texas this year, unless the governor calls him in for a special, which is not likely, even though I've been calling for that with regard to immigration, to do the very specific Article 4, Section 4 constitutional clause where the legislature asked the president to come in due to an invasion. It's most likely not going to happen. Even if it does, we'll still have the votes in the Senate. But bottom line is, this guy he's not going to be an actual Texas senator in the sense of filing and passing legislation. He will be defeated in November in the general election, where a lot more people are going to show up, where in this Republican district, Lee will win if we don't fall asleep at the wheel, if Republicans show up in November, if we do our job between now and then, if people are hosting biblical citizenship and rebuilding liberty classes all over this district in order to get people fired up and get them ready to show up in November. The midterms are critical, obviously, not only for Congress and holding the House and the Senate, but also in these state legislative races. But let's keep our perspective. Let's not freak out. This is definitely one of those situations where you have to keep your head about you while everyone else is losing theirs. Okay, that's it on the Texas Senate race. If you got comments and questions on that, we'll get those in just a second. I want to invite you to a Sharia law event. What to do about Sharia law? How do we stop Sharia law in Texas and across the country at our campus, February 10th? That's just a week and a day away. So it's a week from tomorrow. We will have this on our campus in the legislative chamber. Frank Gaffney, former Undersecretary of Defense under President Reagan, and one of the greatest organizers for defending freedom in our country. He's now a part of the Patriot Academy staff. He's part of our faculty for the, Patriot Institute, and the director of our national security partnership that we have started. Phenomenal guy. He'll be here on February 10th. Bill Federer, who, most all of you, if you're familiar with me, you're certainly familiar with Bill Federer and David Barton and the giants that I stand on the shoulders of. Bill's going to be here as well. His book on what Americans should know about the Quran, critical reading at this time, and a true historical expert on the subject. Chris Dunham, who is our dean of our Patriot Institute here at the campus and has been sounding the alarm on Islam for more than a decade, way ahead of the game on this one. He will be teaching as well. And then I'm going to mostly just MC, but I'll do a little bit of teaching that night. It's going to be a great event. February 10th, right here at the Patriot Academy campus. So if you're anywhere within the region, or you want to travel in and spend a couple of days with us on the campus, we have cottages you can stay in. You can go to patriotcottages.com to rent one of those. They're cheap compared to everything else in Fredericksburg, and you get to stay here on the campus. So I encourage you to check that out. February 10th, it's going to be phenomenal. We may stream it. I don't know yet if we're going to be able to pull that off. For those of you that are way out of state and can't come in for that event, we'll see. But we'll definitely be sharing some of the teaching from that night in the Rebuilding Liberty course going forward. So that's something to look forward to. Okay, let me close out my comments, and then we'll get to your comments and questions with this whole idea of arresting journalists. I am just so embarrassed by the intellectual dishonesty and the, frankly, ignorance of not only the media and how they're reporting the Don Lemon arrest, but also, of course, Hollywood. I mean, the standing ovation for him was just embarrassing at whatever it was, Golden Globes or Academy. I don't know what award show it was the other night. I did share Jelly Roll's speech, which was incredible. Just shared the gospel of Christ and his redemption story all in about 60 seconds. It was magnificent. It was so good. Anyway, I shared that because I saw that on social media, and then I saw the clips of the standing ovation for Don Lemon. What an embarrassment. Okay, people are being so ignorant about this. Let's be very clear. We live in a constitutional republic where we pride ourselves on blind justice. The idea that the scales of justice are blind, that we treat everyone the same. We don't look at you based on the color of your skin or based on your religious affiliation or whether or not you're an elite that happens to be a journalist or you're a politician. If you break the law, you are prosecuted under the law. We have equal justice under the law. Now, if nobody's being prosecuted for what you're doing, then if we prosecute only you, then that's not equal justice under the law. So you could put the J6ers in that category, right? We didn't prosecute the BLM and Antifa, or very few of them. Almost everybody that was arrested was let out the next morning, whereas the J6ers spent years in solitary confinement, not getting a trial, not getting counsel, not getting to community. I mean, all the evil things that happened to them. That was not equal justice under the law. Even though I said, if you're breaking glass and you're attacking cops on January 6th, I said, if you're doing that, stop. Even though they weren't listening to me, obviously. And if you're doing that, you should be arrested. You should be prosecuted for doing that. But equal justice under the law. So if we didn't prosecute BLMers and Antifa and none of them went to jail, then, yeah, you should be arrested, but then not end up going to jail because equal justice under the law, which, frankly, all of them should have been prosecuted and spent some time in jail if they were attacking cops or breaking glass or breaking things as they went into the Capitol. So I've always been intellectually consistent on that, which is why I think now with Minneapolis and the things that are happening, it gives us some solid ground to stand on and intellectual consistency to be able to say you should not be able to attack law enforcement, to impede law enforcement in any way, no matter what you think your righteous cause is. I don't repeat everything I said last week, but all of that stands true without question. But it also applies to politicians and pseudo-journalists. Don Lemon's not even a real journalist anymore. But if he was still a real journalist, it would still apply to him. And even if he just went in there to cover what they were doing, even then, if he's part of accosting those people and interrupting their service and literally preventing them from living out their First Amendment rights, he should still be prosecuted. You do not get a pass. You don't get to use the First Amendment to violate other people's First Amendment rights. And that's what he did. He even bragged about the fact that they were making people uncomfortable, that they were intimidating them, that they were literally preventing them from living out their First Amendment freedom of religion and assembly and speech and all the other things we enjoy when we go to a church service. So absolutely, Don Lemon should be prosecuted. If he does not get prosecuted, if they back off on this, you have now said to every American, if you just act like a journalist, if you just carry your phone in and say, oh, I'm just going to cover this and put it out on Facebook or whatever, you can do anything, go anywhere. You can interrupt anyone. You would go into a mosque and interrupt them. If Don Lemon had done that, you think these leftists would be cheering him on? You can interrupt. You know what? I'm just going to go to a movie theater, and I'm going to stand up in the middle of the movie and tell everybody they have to listen to my speech about the Constitution in the middle of their movie. Of course I don't have a right to do that, and I should be arrested if I do that, just like Don Lemon and these other leftists should be arrested for this. But I'm going to add to that the politicians as well. So this lieutenant governor from Minneapolis and now the governor of New Jersey have actually participated in the impeding of law enforcement from doing their job. So this lady in New Jersey, this Mikey Sherrill, who won this race, terrible. She says, we are going to be standing up a portal so people can upload all their cell phone videos and alert people. If you see an ICE agent in the street, get your phone out. So she is literally telling them, and the rest of her little comment on this show was posting, telling everybody where ICE is so they can stop them from arresting rapists and pedophiles and murderers and gang members and drug dealers. Imagine how insane you have to be, how deceived you have to be as a governor of a state to say, please help me stop law enforcement from removing criminals from our streets. How nuts is that? But that's where we are, man. We're in a Romans 1 situation where people are not only doing evil, they are celebrating the evil of others and now protecting those people in doing that evil. So absolutely, this governor should be arrested. Absolutely should be arrested. There is no, you don't get a get out of jail free card just because you have politician in front of your name or governor or representative or a journalist or whatever it is. So this idea that we're somehow supposed to treat them special or allow them to break the law but not allow anybody else to break the law is insane, and it will destroy the country, folks. That is, when you don't have justice, the system doesn't work. Don't forget the line in America the Beautiful, liberty in law. You only have liberty in a system of law where the law applies to everybody the same. We used to all be for that. Remember when that used to be like a rallying cry? Equal justice under the law, blind justice. Folks, without that, if you don't have biblical justice, which is what equal justice under the law is, neither Jew nor Greek, treat rich and poor the same. This is a biblical idea, and it's the secret sauce of, part of the secret sauce of what made America great in the first place. We will not be great again if we don't apply the law equally to everyone. Now, of course, there's going to be injustice. You're going to have judges that they are biased and they end up treating different people different based on color of skin and religion and all that. And those judges need to be called out on that, hopefully fired. Hopefully you beat them in an election or they get removed some other way. I'm not saying the system is perfect or that it's ever been perfect, but striving to be a more perfect union, as the preamble says, that is what we should be for. And so when anyone wants to treat others different based on the color of their skin or their religious affiliation or their political affiliation or any of those things, if they want to not throw the book at them and prosecute them for breaking the law because they fit in a particular category, or they only want to prosecute that category, then we need to call that out and say, no, that is not allowed. And in this case, because the Don Lemon thing has now become so high profile, you have to move forward. You have to prosecute this guy to the full extent of the law, or there'll be no church service in America not getting interrupted by some Yahoo claiming to be a journalist. That is not a get out of jail free card. Okay, let's see if we can get some comments, questions. And I'm sorry for going early tonight and not letting everybody know, but I've got a dinner I've got to go to, and so I had to do this early. All right, let's see. Where's my chat? Chat. There we go. Okay. Yeah, thank you guys for joining me as early as you did. Let's see. Yeah, Rachel, we only do ours, our legislative session every 2 years for 140 days. So our joke around here is, you're safe the rest of the time because your legislators can't pass bad laws, and you'd be more safe if instead of meeting 140 days every 2 years, if we only met for 2 days every 140 years. That used to be the joke until 2020 and COVID. And Governor Abbott being an absolute tyrant during that period. He's been really great the last year or so. So let me just always add that in there. But he was terrible during COVID. And I changed my tune, man. I was like, no, the legislature needs to be in session more often. Now, unfortunately, they ended up rubber stamping everything that they did, so we may not have been better off. But had your representatives been in office, they could have at least questioned. They could have had hearings. They could have called scientists and doctors in instead of just buying the lies of Anthony Fauci. But anyway, so yeah, we only meet every 2 years for 140 days unless the governor calls them into special session, which we did last year. We met for a good chunk of the year in special sessions because of that. But unlike your state of Pennsylvania, we are a lot less often in session and not expected to be in a special session this year. Governor Abbott absolutely could call him in, and he may do that over some of this Sharia law stuff, over some of the immigration things. So it's possible that this guy that won this special election might get a chance to vote, but it's very, very unlikely. Oh, man, that is a tough question. How do you know when it's time to relocate um, or buckle up and fight where you've been planted? And what's my take on what's going on in Virginia? Nicholas, if you would add what you mean specifically about Virginia, is that some of the legislation they're considering on firearms, or what specifically you're referring to in terms of your question about when to relocate or when to stay and fight? Man, I always try to answer this the same, and that is I can't hear God for you, and it's different. It's different for everyone. I think there is a time where you have to say, you know what, we're gonna take our family somewhere where we can raise them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord and in liberty. I mean, clearly the Pilgrims did that. They decided there was a better place to go do those things. You know, clearly we had westward expansion, and a lot of people did that. And I think there are some places in America where if I were there, even if I had been raised there and had multiple generations there, that I probably would have decided to change and move to Texas or Idaho or Florida or one of these places that had more freedom. But I am thankful. Man, am I ever thankful for the warriors that stayed and fought in California and Washington and Oregon and some of these places that got really bad after COVID and that are still getting bad. But, you know, champions like Jack Hibbs and you know, others that are not only pastoring, but warriors that are just, you know, grinding it out with their business and continuing to fight. So I can't hear for you or when that time is to move. We need to win all 50 states. I am not for secession for Texas or any of those things, because we need the whole country to go red. We need to restore the principles of liberty in every state, because if we split as a nation right now, we will be susceptible to China in those areas that are blue. In other words, if we had you know, basically a red state, blue state split in America, and the left coast and the east coast went blue, then, you know, I think the left coast, especially Washington, especially California, would be susceptible to a China takeover, and then you've got pure communism right there on our border. Whereas right now, we get a chance for a reprieve like we have right now. You have a President Trump in charge of our military and the federal apparatus now turning, you know, back to a more constitutional government and DOJ and all those things. So that pendulum can definitely and will probably swing back to the left at some point. And so then you end up with potentially another auto pen presidency in Joe Biden. But for now, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to take ground back. We've got to get a convention of states. We have to get the amendments that will make some of these things more permanent so that we can have safe havens in states. And then you can leave blue states and move to red states if you want and find freedom there. Each state has got to decide these things on their own, and we've got to start fighting these battles in these individual states. So that's a really long answer, Nicholas, to your question. I think it's different for every family, and you just have to decide for you, where is the place that God's planted you? He may be calling you to be a Daniel and sing the Lord's song in a strange land, right? For you, it may be that he's put a desire in you to defend the place where you grew up and where you may have 5 generations of history. And then for some of you, it may be that he's calling you to be, you know, an explorer and to go somewhere else and to start over and help rebuild or help strengthen an area. There's been a lot of that. Listen, that's why the Daily Wire went to Tennessee. It's why In and Out has now gone to Tennessee as well. In fact, I just saw their headquarters there. So I'm just telling you, it's a tough call. It's a tough call. Man, I wish I had a better answer for you. 50 tax laws being pushed, gun laws, yeah, capacity, yeah, public, man. Whew, Nicholas, it's bad in Virginia, but we saw a reprieve there. We can get back there, but yeah, it's going to be tough for a little while with regard to, you know, that horrible election outcome. And you've got a terrible governor and lieutenant governor at this point. And it's going to be interesting. I do think, Jay, the secession in Alberta is a little different. I think that, you know, let's see where that goes. I never thought the Greenland thing was for real. When Trump first started talking about it, I thought he was joking, and so I didn't see those tea leaves at all. And so I'm no telling, man. Alberta would be a great 51st state for us. Very conservative. Probably end up with 2, very conservative senators from there. Let's see. Yeah, one thing you can do, whether you're in a blue state and in a tough area or in a red state, in fact, it is more, they tend to take off better even in blue states, is be a coach, be a Constitution coach, get Rebuilding Liberty, start doing that class in your community, start doing biblical citizenship in churches. People in the blue areas are more hungry for this than the red areas because you've been fighting it. You've been dealing with the tyranny. So you've had the pain that comes from the tough times. It's making you tough, and you want to get back to good times. And so, yeah, thank you, Colleen and Scarlett, both. I think your points are spot on there for sure. If a spirit-filled church gets interrupted like the one in Minneapolis did, they need to start speaking, praying, and praising the Lord's tongues and watch the place turn inside out. Yeah, Jeremy, that would be fun to watch, and it probably is going to happen. Oh, thank you, Steve. I'll look that up. Another organization. Yeah, I'll look. You said you sent it on Facebook, so I rarely check messages on Facebook. I'm sorry about that. I used to all the time, but I hardly ever get on Facebook anymore, other than to share a post. Just don't have time. But I will. I'll look for your message and we'll definitely defend our trademarks. Okay. Status of the Islamic community trying to get a foothold in Texas. Brenda, I tell you, that's why we're having this event on February 10th. I'm also attending a kind of super secret meeting this week with some other organizations on that very point. There's going to be a fight in Texas to stop Sharia law. I guarantee you. Yeah, James, where do you go? Where do you take your family? Well, I don't think the fight is lost at all in Texas and Florida with regard to Islam or any of the other things, or across the country. But it is going to be a fight. This is going to be This is the fight for the next generation to stop Islam from taking over America. So get in the fight. Do a Rebuilding Liberty course. Start getting people involved. It's an intellectual fight. This is not a physical, kinetic war. Even the Muslims have figured that out. You watch these imams and what they're saying. They're saying we're going to win this with ballots. They're not. I don't think the jihad part of this is going to be as physical and kinetic as what we saw at Bondi Beach in Australia. The jihad is going to be a jihad with ballots. They're winning elections in Michigan and Minnesota, and now their influence in Texas is unbelievable. And so that's why we are getting together. And that's why it's so important for you to do a Rebuilding Liberty course and start getting people in. You got to identify the other patriots. The reason you know who Paul Revere was, from his midnight ride, there were lots of midnight riders throughout the Revolution. The reason Paul Revere is the most famous is because he knew which doors to knock on. He knew where to go. He was going to the pastor's house, Jonas Clark, where John Hancock and Sam Adams were staying the night with Jonas Clark. So you got to get the churches involved, and you got to know who the other patriots are in your community right now for what's coming. And you do that by hosting a Rebuilding Liberty course, Constitution Alive, or Biblical Citizenship. Oh, man, I was going to sign off at 5:30, and it is past 5:30. Let's see if I can still make my dinner. Let's see. Yes, the good news, Stacey, that we need election integrity. The SAVE Act apparently is getting momentum. I mean, you got John Thune and others out there talking about it, so we'll see. That needs to pass. That's a great one to call your congressman on. All right. I think I got most everybody there. I apologize if I missed anybody, but I am out of time. You guys have a fantastic night. Make sure to get you some Patriot Brew at patriotbrew.com and have a mug and be ready to join me next Monday night. Hopefully, I'll be on time next Monday night at 6 o'clock. So I apologize again for going early for those of you that didn't know, and will find this on your social media channels here in about 30 minutes when you go log in at 6 to join us in the tavern. And it's already recorded, but you can join us even though it's a recording. All right. God bless. Have a good night.